Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at a warning for fair women containing the most tragical and lamentable murder of Master George Sanders of London merchant nigh Shooters Hill, consented unto by his own wife, acted by Master Browne, Mistress Drury and Trusty Roger, agents therein with their several ends, as it hath been lately divers times acted by the Right Honourable the Lord Chamberlain, his servants, printed in 1599 and performed some time before then, probably a couple of years earlier, but a precise date is impossible to accurately predict. It's a true crime drama, and quite a few spoilers there, but at the time they would probably have known what was going on. It's selling itself on there's going to be a murder, and to discover how this murder is going to unfold and how it's framed as well. We have a fun framing device, he said. Reading today the character of history itself and Sanders is...
Hi, Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
Reading Boy and Draper today is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and you should never trust an atom, and never trust anybody else either.
Reading Comedy, the personification of comedy and Milliner is...
Sarah Blake, actor, writer and director in Germany.
Reading Tragedy, a Roger and possibly a man is...
Francis Cox, actor living in Amsterdam.
Reading Drury is...
Rachael, actor on the East Coast.
Reading Anne is...
Briony Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire.
And reading Browne is...
I'm Lynn. I'm a teacher. I live in the northwestern United States.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading the stage directions and generally trying to keep things moving forward in a general forward type direction. We open the play with an induction. Let us induct you into it. Enter at one door, history with drum. I don't have a drum to hand. And ensign. Tragedy at another door. In her one hand, a whip. In the other hand, a knife.
Whither away so fast? Peace with that drum. Down with that ensign which disturbs our stage. Out with this luggage, with this foppery. This brawling sheepskin is intolerable.
Indeed, no marvel, though, we shall give place unto a common executioner. Room, room! For God's sake, let us stand away. Oh, we shall have some doughty stuff today.
Enter Comedy at the other end.
What? Yet more cat's guts? Oh, this filthy sound stifles mine ears. More cartwheels creaking yet? A plague upon it. I'll cut your fiddle strings if you stand scraping thus to anger me.
Yup, Mistress Buskins with a whirligig. Are you so touchy? Madam Melpomene, whose mare is dead that you are going to take off her skin?
A plague upon these filthy fiddling tricks, able to poison any noble wit. Avoid the stage, or I will whip you hence.
Indeed thou mayst, for thou art murder's beadle, the common hangman unto tyranny. But history! What, all three met at once? What wonders towards that we are got together?
My meaning was to have been here today, but meeting with my lady Tragedy, she scolds me off. And Comedy, except thou canst prevail, I think she means to banish us the stage.
She cannot. She may for a day or two perhaps be had in some request, but once a week, if we do not appear, she shall find few that will attend her here.
I must confess you have some sparks of wit, some odd ends of old jests scraped up together to tickle shallow, unjudicial ears. Perhaps some puling passion of a lover, but slight and childish. What is this to me? I must have passions that must move the soul, make the heart heavy and throb within the bosom, extorting tears out of the strictest eyes, to rack a thought and strain it to his form, until I wrap the senses from their course. This is my office.
How some damned tyrant to obtain a crown stabs, hangs, empoisons, smothers, cutteth throats. Oh, and then a chorus too comes howling in and tells us of the worrying of the cats. Then too, a filthy, whining ghost lapped in some foul sheet or a leather pilch comes screaming like a pig half-sticked and cries, "Vindicta! Revenge! Revenge!" With that, a little rosin flashes forth, poof, like smoke out of a tobacco pipe or a boy's squib. Then comes in 2 or 3 more like-to drovers with tailors' bodkins, stabbing one another. Is not this trim? Is not here goodly things that you should be so much accounted of? I would not else.
Now, before God, thou'lt make a mad anon. I get jester like a wisp under a scold.
Why, say I could, what care I, history? Then shall we have a tragedy indeed. Pure purple buskin, blood and murder right.
Thus, with your loose and idle similes, you have abused me, but I'll whip you hence. I'll scourge and lash you both from off the stage.
She whips them.
'Tis you have kept the theatres so long, painted in playbills upon every post, that I am scorned of the multitude, my name profaned. But now I'll reign as queen in great Apollo's name, and all the muses, by virtue of whose godhead I am sent. I charge you to be gone and leave this place.
Look, comedy, I marked it not till now. The stage is hung with black, and I perceive the auditors prepared for tragedy.
Nay, then, I see she shall be entertained. These ornaments beseem not thee and me. Then tragedy, kill them today with sorrow. We'll make them laugh with mirthful jest tomorrow.
A tragedy, although today thou reign, tomorrow here I'll domineer again.
And exuberant history and comedy.
Are you both gone so soon? Why then, I see all this fair circuit here is left to me. All you spectators, turn your cheerful eye, give entertainment unto tragedy. My scene is London, native and your own. I sigh to think my subject too well known. I am not feigned. Many now in this round, once to behold me in sad tears were drowned. Yet what I am, I will not let you know, until my next ensuing scene shall show.
Exit tragedy. And boy, was that fun. Rachel, did you want to leap in straight away?
Yeah, I love this. I love tragedy coming in with a whip and a knife. They're all so extra. I love comedy's little speech. Vindicta, revenge, revenge.
Mm. Yes, because we've been there. You know, we've done the Spanish tragedy enough times to recognise that line and recognise all this stuff. You know, it tells us of the worrying of a cat, and then someone comes up in a sheet and screams, and there's smoke from squibs, and people stab one another, and comedy's right. It's all ridiculous when you actually sit down and look at what they're doing. Lynn.
Yeah, I loved it too. I mean, I'm a little obsessed with genre. I'm just really interested in genre and how it helps us read what we're reading. If you don't have the genre right, you don't know how to read it. So I just find this hilarious because they're all twitting each other about the predictability of their form. And, you know, and it's so recognizable to us 400 years later. And it also the way this induction functions, I think, having history and comedy come on, and then tragedy finally has to shoo them off, and claim the stage. It's like, okay, this is a tragedy. This is tragedy. We got tragedy here. You can't take her seriously by then. It's like, yeah, it's a tragedy, only not.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is this thing, but by the end of the 16th century, because we're at that latter end, where theatre industry has been going long enough that the genres are now being much more firmly defined, and it's becoming more important because it's how you sell the show. They talk about playbills. The comedy's got a really good advertising campaign, and everybody keeps coming for comedy, and that's it's because they've just keep putting posters up. You comedy people, and it's that and it's telling us about stage conventions that the stage is hung with black, so when it's a tragedy they're hanging black drapes, and it's just the way that history sort of looks around and goes, Oh, it is tragedy. Look, no, they've hung the set and everything. It's sorry, we'll go now. Sorry, kind of thing. Briony, then Sarah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the language. It was very playful. There was like some fun alliteration, and I really hope that that's going to continue.
Well, Tragedy's in charge now, so if you enjoyed the comedy stuff, then you might not get much of that coming forward, but who knows? Sarah.
I really enjoyed that detail about them suddenly noticing that there were black drapes hung up, and it occurred to me that if you were doing this as a production now, you could have them as sort of contemporary characters. You could have Tragedy could be like a goth. She could come in and be really kind of emo and all in her goth attire, and then History could be like some sort of bespectacled professor in a tweed jacket, and comedy could be, I don't know, sort of all kind of shiny and colourful and slightly absurd. But you could definitely play Tragedy as a goth.
I like the way they're again on just the theatre history note. It's this thing of she may for a day or two perhaps be had at some request. But once a week, if we do not appear, she shall find few that will attend her here. You can't keep playing tragedy. You can't have too many tragedies. And, most people want comedy. You look at the sort of programs that you get in, the amount of rom-coms and comedies that you actually have in a bill. They don't get as much press attention. They don't get the attention that you'd think. But actually, there's a lot of it in the schedules. It's just sitting there in a slightly quieter way. And I like the way Tragedy sort of goes, well, you have your moments, comedy and history. You have your moments, but you're not as deep as Tragedy is. And I love that. There's this sort of snobbery about Tragedy. It's deeper, it's more important, it gets at your emotion. And you're going, yeah. It's all just people playing dress up, isn't it? Okay. Any other thoughts before we actually get into the actual context of the meat of the play itself? Okay. Act 1, Scene 1. Enter Sanders, Anne Sanders, Drury, Browne, Roger, and Master Sanders' servant.
Gentlemen, here must we take our leave, thanking you for your courteous company and for your good discourse of Ireland, whereas it seems you have been resident by your well noting the particulars.
True, sir, I have been there familiar, and am no better known in London here than I am there unto the better sort, chiefly in Dublin, where, you heard me say, are as great feasts as this we had today.
So I've heard. The land gives good increase of every blessing for the use of man, and 'tis great pity the inhabitants will not be civil, nor live under law.
As civil in the English Pale as here, and laws obeyed, and orders duly kept, and all the rest may one day be reduced.
God grant it so. I pray you, what's your name?
My name's George Browne.
God be with ye, good Master Browne.
Many farewells, Master Saunders, to yourself and to these gentlemen. Ladies, God be with you.
God be with you, sir.
Thanks for your company. I like your talk of Ireland so well that I could wish time had not cut it off. I pray ye, sir, if ye come near my house, call, and you shall be welcome, Master Browne.
I thank ye, Mistress Drury, is it not so?
My name is Anne Drury.
Oh, come, will ye go?
I'll wait upon you, sir.
And exit Sanders. And Sanders makes a curtsy and departs, and all the rest remains Roger, whom Browne calls.
Hark ye, my friend, are you not a servant unto Mistress Drury?
Yes, indeed, forsooth. For fault of a better, I have served her man and body this 7 years.
I pray thee, do me a piece of favour then, and I'll requite it.
Anything I can.
Entreat thy mistress, when she takes her leave of Master Sanders and his wife, to make retire hither again, for I will speak with her. Wilt thou do it for me?
Yea, sir, that I will. Where shall she find ye?
I'll not stir from hence. Say I entreat her but a word or two. She shall not stay longer than likes herself.
Nay, sir, for that, as you two can agree, I'll warrant you I'll bring her to ye straight.
Exit Roger.
Straight or crooked, I must needs speak with her, for by this light my heart is not my own, but taken prisoner at this frolic feast, entangled in a net of golden wire, which love and had slyly laid in her fair looks. Oh, Master Sanders, thou art a happy man to have so sweet a creature to thy wife, whom I must win. I must lose my life. But if she be as modest as she seems, that thy heart may break, George Browne, ere thou obtain. This Mistress Drury must be made the mean, whate'er the cost, to compass my desire. I hope well she doth so soon retire.
Enter Roger and Drury.
Good Mistress Drury, pardon this bold part I have played upon so small acquaintance to send for you. Let your good nature hide the blame of my bad nurture for this once.
I take it for a favor, Master Browne, and no offense. A man of your fair parts will send for me to steed him anyway.
Sir, ye shall find my mistress as courteous a gentlewoman as any is in London, if ye have occasion to use her.
So I presume, friend. Mistress, by your leave. I would not that your man should hear our speech, for it concerns me much it be concealed.
I hope it is no treason you will speak.
No, by my faith, nor felony.
Nay, then, though my man Roger hear it, never care. If it be love or secrets due to that, Roger is trusty. I dare pawn my life, as any fellow within London walls. But if you have some secret malady that craves my help, to use my surgery, which though I say't is pretty, he shall hence. If not, be bold to speak, there's no offense.
I have no sore, but a new inward grief, which by your physic may find some relief.
What, is to surfeit?
Aye, at this late feast.
Why, aqua caelestis, or the water of balm, or Rosa soils, or that of Dr. Stevens will help us surfeit. Now I remember me. Mr. Saunders hath the sovereign thing to help a sudden surfeit presently.
I think she have. How shall I compass it?
I'll send my man for some aunt.
Pray ye stay. She'll never send that which will do me good.
Oh, say not so, for then ye know her not.
I would I did so well as I could wish.
She's even as courteous a gentlewoman, sir, as kind a peat as London can afford. Not send it, quotha. Yes, and bring't herself, if need require. A poor woman t'other day, her water-bearer's wife, had surfeited without eating beans, you know 'tis windy meat, and the poor creature's subject to the stone. She went herself and gave her but a dram. It holped her straight. In less than half an hour, she fell unto her business till she sweat and was as well as I am now.
But that which a woman helps not me, a woman's help will rather do me good.
If hey, I have found you. Are ye such a one? Well, Master Browne, I warrant you, let you alone.
But Mistress Drury, leave me not yet alone, for if ye do, I never shall alone obtain the company that my soul desires. Faith, tell me one thing. Can ye not do much with Mistress Sanders? Are you not inward with her?
I dare presume to do as much with her as any woman in this city can.
What's your opinion of her honesty?
Oh, very honest, very chaste, a faith. I will not wrong her for £1,000.
Then all your physic cannot cure my wound.
Your wound is love. Is that your surfeit, sir?
Yea, and 'tis cureless without help of her.
I am very sorry that I cannot ease ye.
Well, if ye can, in faith, I will well please ye.
You wear a pretty turquoise there, methinks. I would I had the fellow on't.
Take ye this, upon condition to effect my bliss.
Pardon me that, sir, no condition. For that grief I am no physician.
And we'll just pause there because you're now going to bring the servant back into hearing distance, even though this has all been out of hearing of Roger. Random encounter with some guy who's been in Ireland and has been regaling everyone with these wonderful anecdotes about Ireland. And he is quite keen on Sanders' wife. And is looking to get Mistress Drury to be a go-between. Mistress Drury has seen through his attempt to be subtle quite quickly. Asking, what's your opinion of her honesty? Oh, very honest, very chaste. Something very pointed about that, and then leads to, oh, you have a very nice jewel there. Have we got to the bargaining stage here? Yes, some bribes. I'm quite clearly interested in some bribes. This is interesting. And Roger just standing off to one side at the moment, presumably hearing nothing. Who knows? Thoughts in the room about this story so far, Francis?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out where exactly this is taking place. Is it an inn? They've all just eaten together, but they seem to be strangers, or at the very least new acquaintances. So I've been trying to figure that out, and also figure out some of the class differences as well. Because at first I thought Anne Drury was maybe kind of upper class, but I don't think she is. So yeah, that's where I am at the moment.
Mm, yeah, and it does seem that it's some sort of chance encounter in a some kind of establishment.
Yeah.
What the establishment is, I don't think it's been clearly stated whether it's an inn or a tavern or an ordinary or any of those various options that we have there. Maybe it's a harvester. They've all met.
Or McDonald's.
Yeah, a carvery of some description.
Yeah.
Sorry, for the American, we're just describing the less salubrious end of the eating market there. Anyway, other thoughts in the room, Sarah?
It's a really interesting opening, given that induction that we had, because it reads or sounds like a city comedy so far. And I mean, I haven't read this play. I haven't even highlighted my lines. So it's like, I have no clue where this is going. I assume from the title that it is going to turn into like a proper, gritty, horrible crime tragedy with somebody being murdered, but it certainly hasn't started that way. It started in quite this sort of quite witty, knowing, quite sophisticated comic way. And given that that's come after the induction, where you had tragedy and history and comedy all kind of vying, and then tragedy seeing them off, it's quite an entertaining way to have started the play. I'm now wondering, is it actually going to turn into? Is it going to be the tragedy that I was expecting, or is this actually just going to be a comedy? I've no idea.
I think before Browne started inquiring after how to get access to somebody's wife, I'm with you. At the moment he starts going, I quite fancy the wife. I'm going to use this widow Drury as a go-between. So, yeah, it's It feels, yeah, it started very civil and nice, but you know, I'm wondering how much spin you give that at the very beginning as well. Alan.
I must admit, coming back to the question about the class of people, I think Drury has been very pointedly described as a widow. I have a feeling that she is a widow of someone of probably similar social status to Sanders, but that she was not born into that group. She seems almost to have the knowingness of the sort of board we've seen in other plays of this sort of period.
I don't know if we've got enough evidence yet. Let's see what additional data we get as we go. Any other thoughts about tone or these people and about where this all goes? Francis.
Well, we've got a gentleman, and I use that word loosely, trying to snatch a woman away from her husband. So I think that gives a clue as to kind of where this is going, true crime wise.
Who could possibly get murdered?
Yeah.
I mean, I should point out, I did state at the beginning of it, you know, exactly who's going to get murdered and exactly who's going to be organising it. But you know, it's how it all plays out. That's how we go to it. Anyway, we're still mid-scene. Browne has suggested to Drury that so the general direction of bribery. And Drury then continues by drawing in Roger into the conversation. So draw in Roger.
How sayest thou, Roger? Am I?
Yea, forsooth, mistress. What did ye ask?
This gentleman's in love with Mistress Sanders, and would have me speak in his behalf. How sayest thou? Dare I doubt? And she's so honest, wise, and virtuous.
What? Oh, sorry.
What mean ye, Mistress Drury, to bewray unto your man what I in secret spake?
Hush, fear you not. 'Tis trusty Roger this. I use his counsel in as deep affairs. How sayest thou, Hodge?
Mistress, this I say. Though Mistress Saunders be very honest, as in my conscience she is, and her husband wise and subtle, and in all Billingsgate ward not a kinder couple, yet if you would wrong her husband, your dear friend, methinks ye have such a sweet tongue as will supple a stone, and for my life, if ye list to labour, you'll win her. Sir, stick close to my mistress. She's studying the law, and if ye be not straight-laced, ye know my mind. She'll do it for ye, and I'll play my part.
Here, Mistress Drury, take this same ring is yours. Wear it for my sake, and if ye do me good, command this chain, this hand, and this heart blood. What say ye to me? Speak a cheerful word.
Faith, mistress, do. He's a fine gentleman. Pity he should languish for a little love.
Yea, but thou knowest they are both my friends. He's very wise, she very circumspect, very respective of her honest name.
If ye list, you could cover as great a blame.
If I should break it and she take it ill?
You have cunning. Pray ye use your skill to her master Browne.
What say ye to me, lady?
This I say. I cannot make a man to cast away so goodly a creature as yourself were sin. Second my onset, for I will begin to break the ice, that you may pass the ford. Do your good will. You shall have my good word.
But how shall I have opportunity?
That must be watched, but very secretly.
How? At her house?
There ye may not enter.
How then?
By some other fine adventure. Watch when her husband goes to the exchange. She'll sit at door. To her, though she be strange. Spare not to speak. Ye can but be denied. Women love most by whom they are most tried. My man shall watch, and I will watch my turn. I cannot see so fair a gallant mourn.
He bless my soul by showing me the way. Mistress Drury, if I do obtain, but do imagine how I'll quit your pain. But where's the house?
Against St. Dunstan's Church.
St. Dunstan's in Fleet Street.
No, near Billingsgate. St. Dunstan's in the east, that's in the west. Be bold to speak, for I will do my best.
Thanks, Mistress Drury. Roger, drink you that. And as I speed, expect your recompense.
I thank ye, sir. Nay, I will gauge my hand. Few women can my mistress force withstand.
Sir, this is all ye have to say?
For the time, Mistress Drury, we will part. Win Mistress Sanders, and ye win my heart.
Hope you the best. She shall have much ado to hold her own when I begin to woo. Come, Hodge.
And exit Drury.
I trust, sir, when my mistress has obtained your suit, you'll suit me in a cast suit of your apparel.
Cast and uncast shall trusty Roger have, if thou be secret and an honest maid.
And they exit. Yeah, I like the way that Roger at the end just goes, give us a job when this is all over. Give us a job. I'm sure you'll give me some, some nice apparel, as it were, in that sense. I do love the way that Browne has to ask directions, and it's just, you can almost hear Drury just going, tourist. And I also just love the way that the moment they've sort of gone negotiating money on this, she immediately say, Roger, he's trying to shack up with the mistress, and he's going, what are you doing? What are you doing? And she goes, no, Roger does all my thinking for me. He's good at that. Yeah. Thoughts from the room, Lynn, then Rachael.
Definitely a what could possibly go wrong situation here. I mean, doesn't the expression 3 can keep a secret if 2 are away, doesn't that like take from this period? So yeah, the more people who know about this, the dodgier it gets. The other thing that's sort of interesting about the dynamic here is that, I mean, they do mention that Browne is a goodly gentleman, but Drury is the one who's going to use her persuasive power. It's like that's interesting that she's the one that's got the agency in this situation. It's not like, oh, I will, I'll make sure that you two get together and then you go. It's just like, I'll talk her into it. That's just something to notice.
And it's also, what's the relationship between Browne and Drury, because it's quite flirty as well. There's something quite interesting going on there, or potentially could be quite interesting in the playing of as the go-between, and something quite sordid and weird could be going on here as well. Rachael, then Alan.
I was actually going to say something the opposite of that, because I feel like I think it would be depending on what way production wanted to take it, because if it's just Browne saying it because he's seen it in other in other plays, because there's something in this that I forget what it was, which play it was that we were doing, but it's where the Englishman is talking to a prostitute, and she's like, he's trying to, swindle her out of money, and she's like, no, you pay basically. And if he's keeps saying you could win my heart, and there just seems to be no answer from Drury on that. So I think if you wanted it in the comic direction, you could make it like very much like it's very much a money deal, and he thinks he's playing the manipulator, and she's like, just do what I say. It's not that complicated.
Alan.
I must admit, Browne, to a certain extent, almost seems like a forerunner to the sort of rakes we see in restoration plays. Although I was getting vague echoes of Stukely, who we read last week. Another scoundrel about town.
I don't know. It's interesting. I'm not sure how scoundrelly he is in terms of his projected character. I mean, he's obviously doing scoundrelly things, but he doesn't really have vocal tics or any of the things that we sort of associate with the more. He's not flamboyant, and he obviously has money, or appears to have money. You know what this period's like. If you've got one decent pair of clothes that are reasonably clean and not threadbare, then you can probably pull together a good line of credit. But yeah, I'm interested actually there about how much is there and how much comes out of performance, because I'm not sure how much in the text, in terms of actually the words he's saying, is pushing us that way. It's just the situation is. I could be wrong on that. I don't know. Francis.
I was going to say I find the relationship between Drury and Roger very interesting. They seem to be kind of as thick as thieves, as it were. And it would be very interesting to play that on stage, I think.
Yeah, and that question of how this because Roger isn't Drury's servant, so there's something interesting there that this widow and that precise relationship between that and the others, and how that all functions. Alan.
Sorry, you said Roger isn't Drury's servant. I thought Roger was Drury's servant, not Sanders.
I thought it was Sanders' servant.
No, I think he's Drury's.
Yeah.
That's why I assumed I was just reading the stage direction, and maybe it didn't, because that makes much more sense. It's just because that makes them a sort of slightly wicked or slightly immoral double act. Yes, later on it is explicitly stated as her man. So excellent. Okay, that's me. That's why we do it. Any other thoughts in the room before we go into the next scene? No. Okay, Act 1, Scene 2. Enter Anne Sanders with her little son and sit at her door.
Where are you, Mother? When shall we go to supper?
Why, when your father comes from the exchange. You're not hungry since you came from school.
Not hungry, Mother, but out faint eat.
Forbear a while until your father come. I sit here to expect his quick return.
Mother, shall I not have new bow and shafts against our school-go feasting?
Yes, if you learn, and against Easter new apparel too.
You'll lend me all your scarves and all your rings and buy me a white feather for my velvet cap, will you, Mother? Yeah, say, pray you say so.
Go, prattling boy, go bid your sister see my closet locked when she takes out the fruit.
I will, forsooth, and take some for my pains.
Exit boy, having used up all his pester power.
Well, Sir Sauce, does your master teach you that? I pray, God bless thee, thou'rt a very wag.
Enter Browne.
Yonder she sits to light this obscure street, like a bright diamond worn in some dark place, or like the moon in a black winter's night to comfort wandering travelers in their way. But so demure, so modest are her looks, so chaste her eyes, so virtuous her aspect, as do repulse love's false artillery. Yet I must speak, though checked with scornful way. Desire draws on, but reason bids me stay. My tuttress Drury, gave me charge to speak, and speak I must, or else my heart will break. God save ye, Mistress Saunders, all alone? Sit ye to take the view of passengers?
No, in good sooth, sir, I give small regard who comes or goes. My husband I attend, whose coming will be speedy from the exchange.
A good exchange made for single life that joined in marriage to so sweet a wife.
Coming to speak with Master Sanders, sir?
Why ask you that?
Because you make a stay here at this door.
I stay in courtesy to give you thanks for your last company. I hope my kind salute doth not offend.
No, sir, and yet such unexpected kindness is like Herb John in broth.
I pray you, how is that?
It may e'en as well be laid aside as used. If you have business with my husband, sir, you're welcome. Otherwise, I'll take my leave.
Nay, gentle mistress, let not my access be means to drive you from your door so soon. I would be loath to prejudice your pleasure, for my good liking at the feast conceived, if Master Sanders shall have cause to use the favor of some noble personage, let him employ no other but George Browne to effect his suit without a recompense. I speak, I know not what, my tongue and heart are so divided through the force of love.
I thank you, sir, but if he have such cause, I hope he's not so void of friends in court, but he may speed and never trouble you. Yet I will do your errand, if you please.
And does it please you? I doubt I trouble you.
Resolve your doubt, and trouble me no more.
'Twill never be. I thought as much before. God be with you, mistress.
Fare ye well, good sir.
I'll to Nan Drury yet, and talk with her.
And exit Browne.
These errand-making gallants are good men that cannot pass and see a woman sit of any sort alone at any door, but they will find excuse to stand and prate, fools that they are to bite at every bait.
Enter Saunders.
Here he comes now, whom I have looked for long.
How now, sweet Nan? Sitst thou here all alone?
Better alone than have bad company.
I trust there's none but good resorts to thee.
There shall not, sir, if I know what they be. Ye have stayed late, sir, at the exchange tonight.
Upon occasion, Nan. Is supper ready?
An hour ago.
And what good company? None to sup with us? Send one for Nan Drury. She'll play the wag, tell tales, and make us merry.
I think she has supped, but one shall run and look. If your meat be marred, blame yourself and not the cook.
Howe'er it be, we'll take it in good part, for once, and use it not. Come, let's in, sweetheart.
And exeunt Saunders and Anne into the house. Oh, this is giving us so much more information. Browne is so much more feckless in this scene. It's this idea that he's a gallant, but he doesn't seem to have any experience at all. I mean, it's a slightly more detailed stuff of what I was saying before. He didn't feel very gallanty, except perhaps in his dress and what his aspirations. And yeah, that Drury is the tutor here, Nan Drury, so we're getting more of an indication of age as well for Drury. This is more a Dame Sirith vibe of the tutor to the young who doesn't know what he's doing. I love the way Browne just goes, "What am I saying?" in his aside of just going, "I'm just saying words. It's all going wrong." And I think going actually back to what Sarah was saying earlier, a good point of actually, at the moment, this could not go towards murder. This could easily, actually, with a bit of spin, be quite a fun comedy. Lynn, then Alan.
Yeah, so, is this thing on? I think that Browne seems genuinely smitten. He's not a man about town. He's not a rake. He's genuinely Twitter-pated over this woman. So because he has that little monologue that before he speaks to her about, she walks in beauty like the night or whatever. So I think we're getting that delineation of his character. And despite what Robert said about Nan Drury, maybe Nan being like Nana, what I noticed is that Anne Saunders and Nan Drury have the same first name. Because Sanders says, "How now, sweet Nan, sitst thou here all alone?" He's calling her Nan. Nan is a common nickname for Anne. Mine, Anne,
yes.
Nan. So I wonder if that's just because in the historical event that this is dramatizing, they had the same first name, or what that's about. But it certainly it's something to notice again that they have the same given name.
Yeah, and it's the way that Anne doesn't seem too keen on the idea of calling for Nan Drury again. It's like, well, you could do, but the dinner might be ruined. I'm just wondering if there's a slight hesitation on her part to be in her company again. Because, let's be clear here, Anne is having none of it from Browne. I mean, it's a very polite go away, and then a very clear aside to the audience once gone. I mean, there's absolutely no ambiguity of feelings there.
Yeah, she's basically saying in her little, after he leaves, "Goddamn street harassers."
Yeah. Alan. And then
I was
Rachael.
going to make precisely the same point about Nan being the nickname for Anne. I don't think it's necessarily telling us anything about the generational profile. They could be near contemporaries.
And of course, we got the lovely exchange with the boy, of the Pester Power boy, of just, oh, can I have a new bow and arrow? And can I have this? Can I have that? Yes, yes, yes. No, go away. Eric.
I was just wondering what he wants the scarves and like velvet things for. That was the part that got me. I was like, can I please have like sort of? I'm not hungry. I'll eat if there's food. Can I go play now? You kind of get the impression that the part I didn't get was lend me all your scarves and all your rings. And then I like white feather for my velvet cap. I understand, but then the first line of that I did not. Why does he want the scarves and the rings?
Well, so I think it's because it just said against Eastern new apparel too. So it's there's an element there. Briony.
I was just going to say, yeah, he wants to borrow her clothes to play dress up for the school non-uniform day.
Totally.
Rachael, did I fail to go to you? I think I did. Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna this scene, like the composition of this scene, I laughed at the beginning about Anne sitting at the window because it seemed very patient Griseller, like that Daria joke where her and her friend are at a party and these two guys hit on them and they're like, oh, we've just been waiting in this room for you all our lives. And then at the end, she, it turns out she's waiting for him to come home for dinner because he's very late, and she's, the opposite of patient Griselle, and then also I don't think she's like cat callers after he leaves. I mean, she is, but I think she even says it to his face because he's like, "I doubt I trouble ye," and she's like, "Resolve your doubt and trouble me no more."
Yeah,
like get out of here.
I've just written F off in the margin of that one. It's unambiguous, and of course, I don't know what precise business Sanders is doing at the exchange, but there's again giving us a good idea of his mercantile status, something there. How aspirational his money is. There's interesting things there. And again, linking us to that element of perhaps city comedy that maybe he's lurking in this text. Maybe just because tragedy's got the upper hand, that doesn't mean that comedy, and for that matter, history, aren't lurking in the background. Because, of course, it is based on true events. So even if it's not that far in the past, it is true. So maybe they all have a stake in this one. Other thoughts? I'm enjoying this so far. I have to say, it's we've got characters. I'm liking these characters. They feel real. Briony.
We've got some like actual 3D women in this one. It's great.
Absolutely.
But she's very sassy as well. It's not just that she's like fully drawn, but yeah, there's a lot to like there as well about Anne already.
Yeah, and this thing about her waiting for her husband there, you know, and that sense of, you know, I've been waiting for a while now, and you know, she first mentions that to the child, so it's more, you know, what are you doing? I'm waiting. You know, the spin that could be played all through this scene, in different directions, and yeah, there's shades of grey to all of this. That's lovely. I'm really enjoying that. I want more. Let's hope it doesn't go horribly wrong. Let's hope it's just a cheerful, happy story of everyday folk getting on with their lives. Act 1, Scene 3. Oh no, Eric, were you waving?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that you can kind of see this as a TV show, like sort of that kind of vibe where it's very sort of conversational and relaxed, and then things will probably just slowly get worse somehow, but just kind of, it feels almost like Neighbours or Friends. It has that vibe of sort of, you know.
I'm feeling it might be heading more EastEnders, on the principle that probably someone's going to get bludgeoned in some horrible way towards the end of the season. So that seems quite plausible. Best Christmas ever. Okay, Act 1, Scene 3. Enter Anne Drury and trusty Roger, her man.
Roger, come hither. Was there no messenger this day from Master Browne to speak with me?
Mistress, not any, and that I marvel at. But I can tell you, he must come and send, and be no niggard of his purse beside, or else I know how it will go with him. He must not think to anchor where he hopes, unless you be his pilot.
Where is that? The fellow talks and prates he knows not what. I be his pilot. Whither? Canst thou tell? The cause he doth frequent my house, thou seest, is for the love he bears unto my daughter.
A very good cloak, mistress, for the rain, and therein I must needs commend your wit. Close dealing is the safest, but by that means the world will be the less suspicious. For whilst 'tis thought he doth affect your daughter, who can suspect his love to Mistress Sanders?
Why now thou art as I would have thee be, conceited and of quick capacity. Some heavy draw latch would have been this month, though hourly I had instructed him, before he could have found my policy. But Hodge, thou art my heart's interpreter, and be thou secret still, as thou hast been, and doubt not but will fill gain by the match. George Browne, as thou knowst, is well reckoned of, a proper man, and hath good store of coin. And Mistress Sanders, she is young and fair, and may be tempered easily like wax, especially by one that is familiar with her.
True, mistress, nor is she the first by many that you have won to stoop unto the lure. Is it your trade, your living? Sorry, it is your trade, your living. What needs more? Drive you the bargain. I will keep the door.
Trusty Roger, thou well deservest thy name.
But mistress, shall I tell you what I think?
Yes, Hodge, what is't?
If you'll be ruled by me, let them pay well for what you undertake. Be not a spokeswoman, mistress, for none of them, but be the better for it. Times will change, and there's no trusting to uncertainties.
Dost think I will? Then beg me for a fool. The money I will finger twixt them twain shall make my daughter such a dowry as I will match her better than with Browne. To some rich attorney or gentleman. Let me alone. If they enjoy their pleasure, my sweet shall be to feed upon their treasure.
Hold you there, mistress. Here comes Master Browne.
Enter Browne.
Good morrow, Mistress Drury.
What, Master Browne? Now, by my faith, you are the very last man we talked of. You're welcome, sir. How do you? And how speed you concerning that you wot of?
Mistress, I'll void the place, if you so please, and give you leave in private to confer.
Whither goes Roger? Call him back again.
Come hither, sirrah. Master Browne will have you stay.
Why, how now, Roger? Will you shrink from me because I saw you not? Do you suppose I make no reckoning of your company? What, man, thy trust it is I build upon.
I thank you, sir. Nay, pray you not be offended. I would be loath to seem unmannerly.
A fig's end. Thy counsel will do well, and we must use thee. Therefore, tarry here. I have no other secret to reveal, but only this, that I have broke the ice and made an entrance to my love's pursuit. Sweet Mistress Sanders, that choice argument of all perfection, sitting at her door, even now I did salute. Some words there passed, but nothing to the purpose. Neither time nor place consorted to my mind. Beside, recourse of servants and of passengers might have been jealous of our conference, and therefore I refrained all large discourse. Only thus much I gathered by her speech, that she is affable, not coy or scornful, and maybe one, would you but be entreated to be a mediator for me and persuade her.
I pray you do so. Mistress, you do know that Master Browne's an honest gentleman, and I dare swear will recompense you well.
If she do mistrust me, there's my purse. And in the same 10 angels of good gold, and when I can but have had access to her, I am in any possibility to win her favor. Challenge of me more. £100 in marriage with your daughter.
Alas, how dare I, Master Browne? Her husband is one that I am much beholding to, a man both loving, bountiful, and just. And to his wife in all this city, none more kind, more loyal-hearted, or more firm. What sin were it to do him than that wrong?
Oh, speak not of his worth, but of her praise. If he be firm, she's fair. If he bountiful, she's beautiful. If he loyal, she's lovely. And if he in all the city for a man be the most absolute, she in all the world is for a woman the most excellent. Oh, earth has seldom such a creature seen, no subject been possessed with such a love.
Mistress, can you hear this and not be moved? I would it lay me to help you, sir. I' faith, you should not need so many words.
I know that. Thou hast always been my friend, and though I never see Anne Saunders more, if for my sake, drink this. And, Mistress Drury, England, I must to bid farewell, or shortly look to hear that I am dead, unless I may prevail to get her love.
Good mistress, leave your dumps and speak to him. You need not study so. 'Tis no such labour. Alas, will you see a gentleman cast away? All is but George. I pray you let it be done.
Well, Master Browne, not for your money's sake so much, as in regard I love you well. Am I content to be your orator? Mistress Sanders shall be certified how fervently you love her, and withal, some other words I'll use in your behalf, as you shall have access to her at least.
I ask no more. When will you undertake it?
This day. It shall no longer be deferred, and in the evening you shall know the answer.
Here, at your house?
Yea, here, if so you please.
No better place. I rest upon your promise. So farewell, Mistress Drury. Till that hour, what sweet can earth afford will not seem sour.
He's sped of faith. Come, Roger, let us go. Ill is the wind doth no man profit blow.
I shall not be the worse for it, that I know.
And they exit. In fact, Browne may have exited before the end of the scene. This is some excellent man work going on here. It's that, pretend not to be that interested, get the other person to make them fight for it, make them ask for it. There's some really, really nice work going on there. We have Drury and Roger basically going over what they want out of this. Drury, she'll make my daughter such a dowry as I will match her better than with Browne, and they've managed to work Browne up from from a jewel to 10 angels to £100. So he's so desperate, and he's so trying to make his conversation with Mistress Sanders sound better than it really went. Yes, I made some overtures and some words were said, and it was seemed very positive. It was a positive meeting. No, it wasn't, mate. It really wasn't. It's really leaning. I mentioned Dame Sereth earlier, and of course Celestina. This whole thing is very familiar territory. Thoughts in the room? Who wants to dive in? Rachael.
The power plays that are being made between Drury and her servant Roger. I wonder if before she married, Mr. Drury, that she already knew Roger, if they had some sort of relationship and being from the same, not necessarily romantic relationship, but association before, if she rose from another class. If there's some, him saying, let you be ruled by me, this, him being of a lower status, but trying to move up maybe.
Yeah, what happened to Mr. Drury? Lynn.
Roger says he served her 7 years, man and boy. So if he started out when he was 12 or 14, he's 22, 24 now. And Drury has a marriageable age daughter. So Roger hasn't been around all that long, relatively speaking. He might have actually come into her household when her husband died. I mean, you could imagine it that way. So they he certainly came into her circle after her daughter was born. So
what's nice about this is that you get that feeling that they all have a world and a backstory, and that we can sit here and speculate, how did they meet, because we're interested in how they function as people. And that's really nice. I should have cut. It's been mentioned in the chat about Dame Sereth. Dame Sereth is a text that we haven't actually done on the YouTube channel, and technically hasn't been released on the podcast, but we have actually recorded it. It's a very early medieval. We call it theatre because we're convinced it is. Some people don't agree, but it's basically a story of a young chap who wants to get off with a married woman and goes to Dame Sereth as a go-between to make it happen. All of which involves a dog and mustard and various horrible trickery. Let's put it this way: the Battersea Dogs Home would not approve. Anyway, bad things happen to the dog. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, generationally, what we're looking at is, given Roger's actually said that he served man and boy for 7 years, and Drury's daughter is presumably of marriageable age, would put her at being 14 plus. The relationship with Roger seems unlikely to have been from before her marriage.
Well, I mean, there's a number of caveats there. I mean, it depends how speculative the question of her daughter is in terms of finding a dowry. It could be much further down the line if you just get the money now, and the actual marriage would probably be much later than that anyway, because it probably wouldn't be till she's in her 20s. So it's giving us clues, but not necessarily enough. I mean, it's a matter of deciding in a production, unless there are much more further clues going on later on. As to specifics, but we are getting a lot. We are getting a lot here, and hopefully there'll be more. Rachael.
If he's in similar age to her daughter, because if you'll be ruled by me, right afterwards, Drury's response is, I will match her better than with Browne. You know, like that comes up next in her thing. If, perhaps there's some relationship that he wants to enter into with her daughter through marriage. And she's saying that, she's going to marry somebody who's better than you, who's better than this guy who's already courting her, maybe, perhaps. One option for it.
I think what old Roger is saying to her is, we should make sure this Mark pays for your services. And she just goes, I thought of that, thank you very much. You don't need to mansplain my plan to me. She's it's just going, yeah, I'm going to get a lot more money out of this than just a few quid. I'm going to set my daughter up for life. That's the plan. And, fair dues on Drury for that, to a degree. It's not a moral person, but, reasonable motives. I like reasonable motives. Eric?
Yeah, I'm just enjoying the whole aside thing where it's almost like, there's a freeze frame and the character steps out and goes, did you hear that? And then goes back into character and sort of...
The asides are really interesting, aren't they? Because they are all asides have the potential to be semi-comic, especially when you basically say the reverse of what you're saying. So there's so much coming with these asides, and there's so many of them, and there's potentially more than we've actually got marked in the text. Other thoughts before we go into the final scene for this session, which we'll probably pause midway through. Act 1, Scene 4. Enter Master Sanders and his man.
Sirrah, what bills of debt are due to me?
All that were due, sir, as this day are paid.
You have enough, then, to discharge the bond of Master Ashmore's £1,500 that must be tendered on the exchange tonight?
With that which Master Bishop owes, we have.
When is his time to pay?
This afternoon.
He's a sure man, thou needst not doubt of him. In any case, take heed unto my credit. I do not use, thou knowest, to break my word, much less my bond. I pray thee look into it. Whereas Master Bishop sends his money, bring the whole sum. I'll be upon the purse, or if I be not, thou can take to quittance.
What shall I say unto my mistress, sir? She bade me tell out £30 e'en now. She meant to have bestowed in linen cloth.
She must defer her market till tomorrow. I know no other shift. My great affairs must not be hindered by such trifling wares.
She told me, sir, the Draper would be here, and George the Milliner with other things, which she appointed should be brought her home.
All's one for that. Another time shall serve. Nor is there any such necessity, but she may very well forbear a while.
She will not so be answered at my hand.
Tell her I did command it should be so.
And exit Sanders.
Your pleasure shall be done, sir, though thereby 'tis I am like to bear the blame away.
Enter Anne Sanders, Mistress Drury, and Draper, and a milliner.
Come near, I pray you. I do like your linen, and you shall have your price. But you, my friend, the gloves you showed me and the Italian purse are both well made, and I do like the fashion. But trust me, the perfume, I am afraid, will not continue. Yet, upon your word, I'll have them too. Sirrah, where is your master?
Forsooth, he's gone to the exchange, even now.
Have you the money ready, which I called for?
No, if it please you, my master gave me charge I should deliver none.
How's that, sir knave? Your master charged you should deliver none? Go to, dispatch, and fetch me £30, or I will send my fingers to your lips.
Good fortune. Thus incensed against her husband, I shall the better break with her for Browne.
I pray you, mistress, pacify yourself. I dare not do it.
You dare not? And why so?
Because there's money to be paid tonight upon my obligation.
What of that? Therefore I may not have to serve my turn?
Indeed, forsooth, there is not in the house as yet sufficient to discharge that debt.
'Tis well that I must stand at your reversion. Entreat my prentice, curtsy to my man, and he must be purse bearer when I need. This was not wont to be your master's order.
No, I'll be sworn of that. I never knew but that you had at all times. Mistress Saunders, a greater sum than that at a command. Mary, perhaps the world may now be changed.
Feed not my mistress' anger. Mistress Drury, you do not well. Tomorrow, if she list, it is not twice so much, but she may have it.
So that my breach of credit in the while is not regarded. I have brought these men to have their money for such necessaries as I have bought, and they have honestly delivered to my hands. And now, forsooth, I must be thought so bare and beggarly as they must be put off until tomorrow.
Good Mistress Sanders, trouble not yourself, if that be all your words shall be, if that be all your word shall be sufficient word for thrice the value of my ware. And trust me, mistress, you shall do me wrong if otherwise you do conceit of me.
Be it for a week, a fortnight, or a month, or when you will, I never would desire better security for all I am worth.
I thank you for your gentleness, my friends, but I have never used to go on credit. There is 2 crowns betwixt you for your pains. Sirrah, deliver them their stuff again, and make them drink a cup of wine. Farewell.
Good Mistress Saunders, let me leave the cloth. I shall be chidden when I do come home.
And I. Therefore I pray you be persuaded.
No, I will not excuse you to your masters. I will excuse you to your masters. So if you love me, use no more entreaty.
And exit the Draper and the Milliner. But we're going to just pause there for a second, because this is a really interesting scene. Sanders doing business and says that his wife can't have money for the buying of these necessaries. How necessary these necessaries are is an interesting question. I'm really liking that Anne has additional side to her life, that she likes shopping. This is good. The idea that she just sits at the window and just does stuff. I like the fact that there's an interesting tension going on here. I love the fact that actually the 2 goods people just go, no, your credit's fine. We'll just leave it here. You're good, and just go, no. Absolutely. It's a fascinating scene, and you're just sitting. We just know that Drury is here, watching this scene. So I'm watching this scene all the way through, going, is this the inn? Where's the plan? How is this going to be used against her? And that's why I'm finding this scene really interesting. I want to know where it's going to go, which in a moment it will. Thoughts in the room about shopping? Rachael.
I just like how she comes in and she says, I like this, I like that, but I think that perfume that you suggested, it's not it, but I'll get it anyway because I can buy it. And then I also love, I love this Draper because maybe this is my not understanding the line right, but it sounds like, were it for thrice the value of my ware, like the credit he's going to charge her, the interest on it is going to be through the roof. And that's why she's throwing them out really quick.
I don't think so.
No, I think it's just you're good for 3 times this. Your line of credit is really good. Your husband's seen at the exchange every day, doing tradey stuff. No, you are clearly very, very wealthy, madam. Lynn.
Yeah, but they're in a cash flow pinch.
Yeah.
Somebody owes me money, and when I get that, then you can have your stuff. So, yeah, this is it. This is becoming a little tawdry. I feel like Master Saunders in his business dealings, and a real gentleman doesn't work. That's so like there's something sort of, I think supposed to be something about that and him and his business dealings that's supposed to be kind of unattractive, I think. And the fact that I'm also a little put off by the fact that he doesn't go to his wife himself and say, look, I know that you have these nice things that you want to buy, and I don't begrudge you that at all, but we need to wait a day because I've got a cash flow thing going on. It'll be fine. Just be patient about it for one day. It's fine. It's fine. He doesn't go to her himself and try to make peace and try to diplomatically navigate that situation. He sends his servant and says, tell her it's because I say so. And then she's also really quite stubborn, and she says, no, I've never bought on credit before and I'm not doing it now. And so like, here's a little tip for your trouble, and we'll give you a drink before you go, but fine, forget the whole thing.
Yeah, there is something slightly toxic just at the edges of their relationship that's really nice. I like this detail. I like the idea, that the going to the exchange is not dissimilar then to as the kind of speculators now. That there is that maybe their entire existence is on is built on sand, and actually one bad trade and this line of credit just grinds to a halt. There's an interesting question there. Sarah.
It's carrying on from what Lynn was saying about how he doesn't go to talk to her himself. He sends his servant, and he's quite brusque, and there is that kind of toxic kind of aspect clearly to their relationship. This is reminding me a lot of Agatha Christie does this in a lot of her novels, whereby basically you know who, even if the murder doesn't get committed till halfway through the story, you know who the murder victim is going to be, because it's the person who has been built up as like, oh yeah, he's a bit mean, or he's a bit mean to his wife, or he's a bit selfish, or he's clearly a bit of a wrong un. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, he's going to be the murder. I mean, we know obviously with this who's going to be the murder victim because we're told at the beginning, but it's like he's going to be the murder victim, so we need to kind of like build up a bit of a backstory for him so that he's not too sympathetic with the audience.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's a fatal flaw. It's not like he's a total bastard. He seems quite nice generally. It's just it's a slightly dysfunctional relationship, and maybe given a few more years, this could go really, really badly wrong. It's just someone's going to put an additional crowbar into that little chink and just give it a good old hoik. And things. And the other, it's an interesting question, the difference between then, obviously then there's an expectation the audience would know the story. Now, of course, doing it now, how much do we tell the audience in advance? Because nobody today would know who's going to get murdered unless we tell them. I spoiled you because you've had the script in front of you, and I sort of expected you'd at least read the title. And I thought I'd do that for the audience at home. But do we tell the audience who's going to get murdered? Because it could all just be a wonderful surprise. Like most murder things, you usually know who's marked for death, but how explicit do we take it? Sorry, Francis.
Yeah, as someone who's always very interested in different businesses and commerce and how they work and what the dynamics are, I found the whole business with the information about the money lending and the cash flow problem, and then the Drapers, the Draper and the Milliner coming in with their wares and all that kind of negotiation. I just found that a very interesting glimpse of kind of the business world of this time.
Well, it also is about the power of who has money or who's allowed to own money at this time. So Anne Sanders does not own any money. Mm-hmm. Her husband owns all the money. And so she's entirely dependent on her husband. Mistress Drury, Widow Drury, has all her own money because she's a widow and she owns it all. And she's deliberately planning ahead to have more money so that her daughter will have money. And so that's why Drury has more agency, perhaps to a degree, because she has control of her own purse strings, whereas Anne explicitly is socially embarrassed here. Her husband takes away the credit card and says, you cannot have money. And she has no power at all in this society at this time. And so the fact that we have two women who have totally different relationships to money is quite interesting. Anyway, Rachael, before we read the final section.
Yeah, I was just gonna say they're Anne and Drury's relationship seems very much like frenemies, and also like keeping up with the Joneses, and that what Drury said in that little section could be like I don't know, just like a little jab at her. You know what I mean? Like not at her husband or something.
Yeah, we're going to get more data on the actual relationship between Anne and Drury. And also, just Anne's going to say, to a degree, what I just said now as well, or in a slightly interesting thing about the nature of why she's so upset in front of all these people. So we'll take up Anne is left with Drury as the Draper and the Milliner exit. I assume the man has already exited as well. I don't think he's in this scene. So yes, Anne, take it away.
I am a woman, and in that respect am well content my husband shall control me. But that my man should overawe me too, and in the sight of strangers, Mistress Drury, I tell you true, he does grieve me to the heart.
Your husband was to blame, to say the truth, that gave his servant such authority. What signifies it? But he doth repose more trust in a wild boy than in his wife.
Nay, give me leave to think the best of him. It was my destiny and not his malice. Sure, I did know as well when I did rise this morning that I should be chafed ere noon, as where I stand.
By what, good Mistress Sanders?
Why, by these yellow spots upon my fingers. They never come to me, but I am sure to hear of anger ere I go to bed.
'Tis like enough. I pray you let me see. Good sooth, they are manifest as day. And let me tell you too, I see deciphered within this palm of yours to quit that evil, fair signs of better fortune to ensue. Cheer up your heart. You shortly shall be free from all your troubles. See you this character, directly fixed to the line of life. It signifies a dissolution. You must be, Mistress Anne, a widow shortly.
No, God forbid. I hope you do but jest.
It is most certain. You must bury George.
Have you such knowledge then in palmistry?
More than in surgery, though I do make that my profession. This is my best living. And where I cure one sickness or disease, I tell 100 fortunes in a year. What makes my house so haunted as it is, with merchants' wives, bachelors, and young maids, but for my matchless skill in palmistry? Lend me your hand again. I'll tell you more. A widow, said I. Yea, and make a change, not for the worst, but for the better far. A gentleman, my girl, must be the next. A gallant fellow, one that is beloved of great estates. 'Tis plainly figured here, and this is called the ladder of promotion.
I do not wish to be promoted so. My George is gentle and beloved beside, and I have e'en as good a husband of him as any wench in London hath beside.
True, he is good, but not too good for God. He's kind, but can his love dispense with death? He's wealthy and a handsome man beside, but will his grave be satisfied with that? He keeps you well. Who says the contrary? Yet better's better. Now you are arrayed after a civil manner, but the next shall keep you in your hood and gown of silk. And when you stir abroad, ride in your coach, and have your dozen men all in a livery. to wait upon you. This is somewhat like.
Yet had I rather be as now I am, if God were pleased that it should be so.
Ay, Mary, now you speak like a good Christian. If God were pleased. Oh, but he hath decreed it shall be otherwise, and to repine against his providence, you know 'tis sin.
Your words do make me think I know not what, and burden me with fear as well as doubt.
Tut, I could tell ye for a need his name that is ordained to be your next husband. But for a testimony of my former speeches, let it suffice I find it in your hand that you already are acquainted with him. And let me see. This crooked line, derived from your ring finger, shows me not long since you had some speeches with him in the street, or near about your door, I am sure it was.
I know of none more than that gentleman that supped with us. They call him Captain Browne, and he, I must confess, against my will, came to my door as I was sitting there, and used some idle chat, might have been spared, and more, I wis, than I had pleasure in.
I cannot tell if Captain Browne it were, then Captain Browne as he must marry you. His name is George, I take it. Yea, 'tis so. My rules of palmistry declare no less.
'Tis very strange how you should know so much.
Nay, I can make rehearsal of the words did pass betwixt you, if I were disposed. Yet I protest I never saw the man since, nor before the night he supped with us. Briefly, it is your fortune, Mistress Saunders, and there's no remedy but you must have him. I counsel you to no immodesty. 'Tis lawful, one deceased, to take another. In the mean space, I would not have you coy. But if he come unto your house, or so, to use him courteously, as one for whom you were created in your birth a wife.
If it be so, I must submit myself to that which God and destiny sets down. But yet I can assure you, Mistress Drury, I do not find me any way inclined to change off new affection, nor, God willing, will I be false to Sanders whilst I live. By this time, he's returned from the exchange. Come, you shall sup with us.
And exit Anne.
I'll follow you. Why, this is well. I never could have found a fitter way to compass Browne's desire, nor in her woman's breast kindled love's fire. For this will hammer so within her head, as for the new she'll wish the old were dead. When in the neck of this I will devise some stratagem to close up Saunders' eyes.
Exit Drury. Ooh. So palmistry is and we've got some clues as to Widow Drury's income. Professional palmister and surgeon. I'm not so sure about that point. It's really interesting because Anne all the way through this is going, I'm not keen, I'm not sure, I'm not feeling it. And just Drury just keeps working on it. Think of the money. Oh well, it's destiny. Go away and think about it. Briony.
Yeah, I just like that Anne's got that level of integrity, that she isn't just instantly like, oh, what, I could be richer. Yeah, go on then. She's being quite well tempted here, and she's actually showing a little bit of strength of character to not just be instantly wanting to marry up.
Yeah, in other plays, by the end of the scene, should be enthusiastically plotting a murder, whereas here, it's going to take a bit of time. Lynn.
Yeah, so this is certainly turning into the Anne Drury show. I feel like, it's just like we just keep building her character and just sort of the way she takes over the action. Because I mean, she was just sort of a go-between at first, and then it turns out she does this all the time and she makes a tidy living out of it, but evidently her reputation is intact. She does it discreetly enough that she keeps getting away with being a pander over and over again and hasn't been outed yet. And now she reads the future, and so she's got to be really persuasive. She's got to be really convincing, because Anne Saunders is we don't get the feeling that she's particularly a dim bulb. She's a decent person. So Anne Drury is going to have to be very, very persuasive, and we know she doesn't have a whole lot of personal integrity, because it's just like, yeah, I make a living setting up affairs between married women and their admirers. But now she's like, oh, your husband, he's not long for this world. It wasn't Browne's idea to off the husband. He just wants an affair with Anne Saunders. Like, where did she come up with this? We're gonna bump off your husband. Like, that's her idea.
Yeah, Francis.
Yeah, the play's taken a turn that I wasn't expecting, because as Lynn just said, Anne Saunders up until now has seemed an honest, upright, faithful woman. But here she's being tempted. What I thought was going to happen was that it was going to be Browne's idea to off Mr. Saunders, and that he and Drury and Roger were going to kind of do it between them, stab him in a dark alley or push him off a cliff or something, and then Anne Sanders would be left a widow, and Browne could step into the breach, as it were. But so this has taken me by surprise.
Briony.
Yeah, well, just what you said about she's obviously done a lot of this before and managed to keep her reputation, and that's kind of why I presume why she's come to this solution. She's a surgeon, so I don't think it could be that difficult for her to be able to off somebody without arousing too much suspicion, a la Harold Shipman. And then she's like, the way is then clear. There's not going to be any fallout on her reputation as long as she can get away with offing him. You know what I mean? There's none of that scandal of helping somebody to get with a married woman if you manage to discreetly get rid of the husband. It's all cleaner, isn't it?
Yeah, Alan.
I must admit, I would always mistrust any of Nan Drury's self-descriptions in terms of being surgery, palmistry, or anything else. She's an expert con woman, and the more the character is revealed, the more it looks like she is an experienced board and Roger is the pander.
I don't know if I'd go that far. I definitely think she's a fixer on some level and conning. I mean, the interesting thing is, she's giving a reason why her house is so haunted with merchants' wives, bachelors, and young maids. And I suspect the palmistry thing is absolutely bang on. I think that's what she does, because otherwise, what's the other reason? Anne needs to have a slight reason to slightly be a little wanting to be a little distant with Drury, because you get that slight hint of attention earlier. But if there's anything more than that, then I think she would totally reject her. She wouldn't have her in the house. Sarah.
Yeah, I completely disagree with you, I'm afraid, Alan. I don't think she's a bored at all. I think that when she says she's a surgeon, because it was interesting in the scene where Captain Browne first called for her, she's like, right, what can I do for you? What do you need? What's wrong with you? I think she is she's possibly a midwife. She's a sort of nurse type, sort of healer type figure. She's the local woman that everyone goes to. And I think I personally feel the palmistry might be a yarn. she's like, oh yes, well I know all these people come to me for physicking and because I can cure them, and actually they're actually coming. And I think that might actually be a bit of a yarn to kind of hook Anne in. But I think if you play her as a bawd, this doesn't really work at all. I would say you want to play her as a really motherly figure, someone really kind of crisp and clean and motherly and comforting and brisk and sensible, because then Anne has every reason to trust her and to think of her as a kind of, a goodly widow, a goodly matron that she can confide in and trust in. And it makes the fact that she is a grifter, all the more interesting, because if she's a bawd, then then we all know we all know what she is. Whereas if she's like a kind of quite comfortable looking motherly figure, then that makes what she's doing even more kind of complex and fascinating, because she's kind of playing with a sort of female stereotype, but not the one that you'd perhaps expect.
Yeah, and I don't see we've got any textual evidence for bawdry at all. There's no hint of it anywhere. Lynn, then Rachael.
I actually already closed my file, so I can't look this up. But don't she and Roger have a conversation about, oh yeah, this is how you make your money? Anybody else remember that? He says, they say something about, yeah, this is what we do. We've done this before.
Yeah. They say that they do fixing and things, and they do this kind of caper. But yeah, there was a sort of discussion on that. I haven't dug into it. Rachael.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think she's a bawd, but I think there are, like, they are trying, the playwright is trying to evoke some Celestina vibes or things like that, just to get put her in a certain light, like because she does it, I don't know, I think the palmistry is a ruse as to why these people come to her house, and that she is fixing up relationships, and that in addition to the other surgery she might provide abortions or something like that, or like rooties or something.
I think they'll probably pile into the same business. Actually, the palmistry seems quite skilled, even if it's all hucksterism, which of course it is. Anyway, Francis.
Based on my own personal experience, actually, I think the palmistry is something that she's just added to her range of services because people have asked her to, as you say. Robert, it just kind of goes with the territory. I, as an Englishman living in a foreign country, people come to me and say, oh yeah, you're English. Can you check this English text for me? Can you do this? Can you do that? And sometimes I'm like, yeah, sure. And other times I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I suspect that her clients themselves said, oh, okay, so you deliver babies, you're a bit of a wise woman, can you read my palm for me? And she's like, okay, yeah, why not?
Yeah. Sure, I'll make some tea. Briony.
Yeah, plus the whole palmistry bit gives her a way to use the information that she gains from people from helping them as well. She will be mining all of this useful information the whole time and then using it to fix this and fix that, and under the guise of, oh yes, your palm is telling me all of this, yeah, and I know all these intimate details because your palm is telling me. It's a great bit.
Yeah, and it's, if Captain Browne, his name is George. Do I hear a G? Yay, 'tis so. It's just because I've never spoken to him outside of that time in the pub. I have never met you before, have I, sir? No, kind of stuff. Rachael, then Lynn.
Yeah, it's also this dynamic of the palmistry is wonderful because it lets her gauge the interest in how and what her in for Anne will be, like what exactly is it that she hits on that you can play with in a rehearsal.
Lynn.
Yeah, I'm looking at the top of page 14 where Roger says to Mistress Drury, "True, mistress, nor is she the first by many that you have won to stoop unto the lure. It is your trade, your living. What needs more?" So that implies pretty strongly that she's done this before, that she's been paid to set up assignations between women and the men who desire them.
Okay. We're into almost into extra time. Final thoughts for the play overall. We're 1/3 of the way through. I'm just going to throw in, first of all, that so far this is a play for about 5 actors in terms of the core action, which immediately rings the old ding ding. This could be. I'm looking further on. A lot more people turn up. But I'm looking at this as a very scalable show, and it's got a very core company that is really, really good, and core series of parts, and then lots of other parts which hopefully will be straightforwardly doubleable. So I'm really interested now, looking at this on a structural thing of going, oh, we could do this, really. And it's got a great opening that hangs. I mean, it's got some archaic sort of references, but that induction, reads perfectly well for today, and the basic gag works really nicely. I really like it. It's really interesting how that tonally works in a play like this. So whether, in production, you after the tryouts, you go, maybe we'll drop the induction, it's a bit too funny, or not. It's a really interesting question. But we'll go final thoughts around the room. I'll go to Alan first.
I think actually the induction you could take out and do that as a sketch almost on its own. And when I was listening to that, I was actually thinking, yeah, you could actually do that in Edinburgh Fringe, almost as a show opener, for a gallimaufry of material from all over the place.
Nice.
And would work quite nicely as a little 3-hander, got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and works.
Yeah, I think it worked very nicely for our live shows, actually, as a real nice opening ball, which you can then go into something completely different afterwards. I definitely want to do it as a separate podcast, just looking at that induction, because it's got so much stuff in it that I really like. So that's definitely gone down the list. I really enjoyed that. Francis, any final thoughts about the play overall? Questions, confusions, things that you want to see more of, less of? Who's going to survive? Who's going to get away with it? Who's going to get murdered?
Well, I think we all know who's going to get murdered. And I strongly suspect that Browne, Roger, and Drury are going to meet a sticky end. But I'm really enjoying it. I mean, I love a good thriller anyway, which I think this is what this is. I think it's interesting what people are seeing in it. I think Eric mentioned Neighbours, you mentioned EastEnders, and Sarah mentioned Agatha Christie. I see it as a 40s film noir, like Double Indemnity, which is one of my favourite films, because the character of Browne is the kind of archetypal stranger who comes to town. We don't know too much about him, but he upsets everything. But the only thing that's wrong with that archetype in this context is that I was expecting him to be the instigator of the murder, and it's actually Anne Drury who seems to have come up with this idea. But I still think you could stage this as a 40s film noir with fedoras and everything.
Well, it's relatively straightforward to costume, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which, I always like things that are straightforward to costume. Briony, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I love where this has been already. Just in this first section, that really playful, fun start that we had to it, and then the language hasn't stayed that real playful alliteration that we started off with, but there's so much in the language as it's continued. I love the way these characters talk. They're very well drawn. You get a lot from, about who they are from not that much. They're not like we have somewhere they're really long-winded speeches and things. This seems quite real, fairly economical, but you get a lot of the character drawn from what they're saying.
Eric, any final thoughts? You had massive parts to read today. You get something a bit more substantial next time. I'd say it's a 5-hander, and we've got more than 5 people in the room.
No, I don't mind. I was enjoying the boy going, I want another feather in my cap, please. I like how all the characters are drawn, because they do, you get the impression immediately, like from, okay, if you exclude the tragedy, history, comedy bit, it's kind of how do you call it, very realistic, like you're dropped in the middle of this narrative. So if you took out the part of, and kept, like, I don't know, tragedy, history, comedy as a sketch to itself, and then you started from that, starting from, I don't know, London, England, whatever the line was, you get, like, you're dropped right in the middle of the action, and you already know what's going on. You don't need to be told. I mean, okay, obviously the title tells you everything, almost everything. But you kind of get the impression that these people are known each other for a while. You sort of, the relationships between the characters are established very quickly, rather than them going, oh yes, and this person, I've known this person for 10 years, but I don't like them. It kind of, you don't get any of the exposition that you usually get.
Yes, all of the explicit exposition is pushed towards the newcomer. Which is quite natural, going, yeah, thank you for these wonderful stories about Ireland, strange person we've never met before. Come over to our house. And then everything else sort of, broadly speaking, sort of sprinkles through. That's why it's taken us so long to really unpack who any of them are, because actually the text hasn't just said at the beginning, this person is such and such, of such and such house and doing such and such. And I'm sure there's going to be more data as we go on, as we start to build more of an impression of who everybody is. Sarah, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. Continuing what you and Eric were saying. We haven't talked specifically about it yet either, but I thought the opening, not the induction, which is a separate wonderful thing unto itself, but the actual opening of the story, I thought it was really clever the way it was. It just kind of started at the end of the day, and it's just implied, there's been this big feast, and we've all just met, and we're all just kind of getting to know each other, and I'm going home now. It's like pretty much the first line of the play is like, well, I've got to go home now, see ya. And I mean, that's something that you get all the time in modern scripts, but I don't think I've ever seen it in a early modern drama before. Not that my knowledge is extensive, but I just thought it was, it was a very kind of modern way to open a play. And then of course it does then set up this thing where you're learning about people in a more subtle way. You're learning who they are and how they operate, and what their worldviews are, just from their interactions with each other, which is how real life is. So I am loving it so far, and I'm really hoping I'm going to be able to appear for the continuing sessions, because I know what's going to happen, but I really want to see how it unfolds, and that to me is the mark of a good play. If you know, you can know what the plot is, but it's like, if you want to find out how it unfolds, then that's kind of a big tick from me.
Yeah, I mean, we started with spoilers partly because Tragedy said at the beginning, I sigh to think my subject too well known. I mean, even Tragedy is worried of spoilers. And the fact, having told you in advance what's going to be happening, we're still sort of keen to know how it happens and how it unfolds and things. Oh God, we're really setting up the final session to go horribly wrong, aren't we? Rachael, any final thoughts?
No, Just that I've really enjoyed it so far. The characters and the way the characters are, and the amount that there's still that you could come back to it multiple times and find more. And the way the scenes are set up are so lovely. There's so many little micro things going on that, and I'm just looking forward to tomorrow.
And Lynn, any final thoughts?
Is this thing on? Yeah, there's a lot here that really intrigues me. The fact that the induction basically announces we're going to play with genre, basically tells you that. And then the setup is kind of somewhat comic. Guy new to town conceives a life-threatening crush on another man's wife, trying to get with a wealthy London businessman's wife is something we see in city comedy later on in the period. I'm thinking particularly of The Roaring Girl, although it's usually kind of a young man about town who needs money. So part of his interest is in the businessman's money rather than someone with money who's trying to buy the woman's affections. But still, it's reminiscent of a setup in city comedy. And then before it takes this really dark turn that we saw most recently, it becomes extremely interested in money, status, upward mobility. Drury wants her daughter to marry someone with a permanent income, and you get the feeling that that would be a social step up for her. So all this concern with wealth and status and finance, complicates the emotional already problematic situation. So that's really interests that sort of confluence of human desire and politics or money or economics is just something that always really fascinates me. So I am really intrigued.
I quite like the idea that maybe every so often history and comedy pop in and just slightly derail a scene. So it's like, and tragedy has to come in and go, oi, no, outside, and just force them out. I probably wouldn't do that in a production, but we might do it in rehearsals as a game to just keep everything fresh. But yeah, it raises all sorts of fun things. Well, we've enjoyed a bit of murder.
No, we haven't.
Not that there's been any murder yet. Maybe they'll all be fine. Maybe comedy will come in and save the day, and nobody died, and it will all be fine. But till next time, all that remains is to thank all these wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Bye.
This brawling sheepskin is intolerable.